Welcome back guys on my YouTube channel. Today I'm here to present you my latest build, the Yamaha Ténéré 700 that I built for myself this time to come and ride the Sardinia Legend Rally. This is an amateur rally and it was the perfect occasion to test all the upgrades that I did to this bike. But with no further ado, I'll start explaining to you every part I changed and why I did this. To start with, we changed completely the front end of the bike. We developed this one-piece windshield in fiberglass. This is compatible also with the OEM headlight if one wants to put it on the OEM bike to change the look and to make it easier to remove, because with 4 bolts we removed the whole fairing. For this occasion, we also changed the headlight. The reason for this, we wanted to reduce some of the weight because the OEM headlight is almost 3 kilos of weight, whereas this LED headlight is only 500 grams and it's smaller, it's more compact, and this gives us more space here in the back of the fairing to store anything like a rain jacket and other tools maybe. Staying always on the front end of the bike, you can see that we changed the wheels. We went for some rally wheels with reinforced spokes because here in Sardinia the terrain is really harsh with many pointy rocks, so we wanted to be sure that throughout the rally we didn't have to tighten any spoke. We went also for different tires. We went for the Michelin Desert tire on the front and Michelin Baja tire on the rear. Installed on both wheels the mousse, and one important upgrade was the rear wheel because we went for a 2.5 rim size. This is the rim size you need if you want to put inside these adventure bikes, because the OEM one is 4 I think and it's too wide. So if you try and put a desert tire and a desert mousse, it will feel like it's almost flat. So if you're thinking about putting mousse on your Yamaha Ténéré, keep in mind you will want to change the rear wheel for a more narrow rim. As you may see, we removed also one of the brake discs and also the caliper on the right hand side, and we have only one disc, it's the OEM one. Why we did this is because I feel that for off-road racing and rallies it's not necessary to have 2 discs because we end up having too much brake power, and I believe this is a better solution. Also 1 disc less that can brake and bend. To be able to do this, we had to remove completely all the ABS from the bike, so all the routing of the hoses going into the ABS ECU, and we changed the brake hose. We went for a WR450F hose. This is long enough that it could be mounted here on the Ténéré 700. The hose then is routed on a different pump. We went for the WR and YZ front brake pump. This changes completely the braking system on this bike. Believe me, the bike has changed completely in the brake response. The bike is much more responsive. For my riding and when I want to really push hard here on the gravel roads, I need the bike to be very sensible when I pull the brakes and I need it to stop. And with this, it works amazingly well. We did the same upgrade on the rear brake. We also there installed the YZWR pump, and now when we are especially on gravel roads and we want to make the rear wheel block immediately so that we can skid inside the turn, this upgrade is absolutely necessary, and I'm really happy because anyone that has tested my bike that I let here my friends try, they immediately felt a huge difference in the braking of the bike. This is only one of the many changes we made. You can see that we have changed the grips. We went for some motocross grips from Pro Taper, the clamp on. This means that we just need to tighten them and we don't need to use glue or anything. And one cool feature of these Pro Taper clamp on grips is that in the box you get all the plastics for the different bike models so that you can fit it directly on the Ténéré throttle body. Also, the handlebar is a motocross bike. It's the YZ Bend by Pro Taper. I prefer this a lot more because the bend is less high, so to ride the bike in tight sections here in the forest, the bike handles much more easily. Also because it's slightly shorter, so we have better control on it. Together with the handlebars, I had to go with a full Pro taper system, so we changed also the front brake lever and the clutch lever. Very nice thing of the brake lever is that we have 6 positions that we can change of the brake lever by simply twisting this gold wheel, and I adjusted it on the +3, so I want it to come as out as possible. The brake lever is also shorter. This means in case of crash, it's more difficult, it will break, but these also are levers that can move here forward, so they should be crash proof. Luckily we didn't try it during this rally. While I was building this bike, I was perplexed on a few things that I installed. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen I worked day and night, like 3 days, to build from scratch this bike. And in regards of the front brake, because look, when I pull the lever, it would go all to the end, touching the grip, and I thought that I would show up here and the bike wouldn't be able to brake on the front. Instead, I found this really good, because the brake, having all this long travel, was super sensitive on the front end, and on this super slippery terrain it helped me a lot, especially while I was in the center of the turn and maybe I was running a bit going wide. I would slightly pull the front brake and manage to turn the bike. To protect then the levers, I put some open handguards. I personally prefer open handguards. I'm a bit scared of the closed ones. I've had a few friends that crashed and had their hand sticking there and broke their, their wrist. Some people ask me, but the closed handguards prevent you from breaking the lever. That's not really true. I've seen people with closed handguards break levers, so the chances are if you crash bad, you'll break the lever. For sure, putting anti-brake levers like these help to prevent any issues. Then on the handlebar, we also moved the OEM dashboard because I needed here space to install the new Rebel X Sports rally kit. This is a prototype still that we were testing here, and Alessandro Botturi was testing another rally kit by Rebel X Sports that keeps the OEM headlight and OEM fairing. We moved the dashboard here, and I can tell you, I wouldn't see the kilometers an hour I was going because it was too low. But one thing I would see really well when riding was the gear I was in. I found this super useful, especially when I was going up hills, in very steep up hills with turns. On the nav tower, which is a plug-and-play nav tower that keeps the OEM dimensions of the headlight and fairing, and this is super important because you have to consider one thing. The OEM headlight weighs 3 kilos almost. If you move the OEM headlight, all that weight, more in front, and you move it forward, the weight perceived when you're riding will be much more. It will be like you're perceiving almost 10 kilos if you're moving it forward, because you want the weight to be as close as the frame as possible. This is the best thing to do when you're setting up your rally bike, is to always keep the instruments as low as possible, because this will mean that the bike will be easy to handle and you won't even feel the weight. On the nav tower, this is the modular nav tower that you also saw in a different version on Alessandro's bike. If you haven't watched the video, I'll put it somewhere here, go watch the video. I placed the Carpe Iter because I wanted to go digital. I wanted to experience racing with a digital roadbook. And if you're interested about my opinion on how it was to race with a digital roadbook, leave it down in the comments. Let me know if you want me to make a dedicated video on that, so that I can explain to you what were for me the advantages and disadvantages. For sure, the screen was super bright. I could see it much better than paper, but it was missing some features. I placed the tablet here and it's getting recharged when riding, so I never risk to end up with the tablet drowning of battery. And it has an enclosure where I can block it with the key, so if I stop, for example, at a bar to eat an ice cream, I won't worry that someone comes and grabs my tablet. On top of the tablet, I put the RNS GFX 2 Pro. Why did I choose to put this Trip Master? I could have had the Trip Master inside the tablet, but that would have meant that the numbers would be very small and also the roadbook would have to be smaller. Instead, like this, I separated the system, so I was only having the roadbook on the tablet, and I went for the GFX Pro 2 because I didn't want to wire the sensor cable. This strip muster can be wired with the sensor cable. The very awesome thing is that you can have 2 strip musters in one, because one is GPS with internal antenna and the other is with the sensor cable. I decided I'll just look at the GPS strip muster and not wire anything. I did not even wire any button switch, and it worked perfectly. It made everything very easy and comprehensive, and I never got lost, not even once. So I have to say this was a good option. The road book, how would I command it since it's a tablet? I use this thumb switch. It's Bluetooth, so I would move my road book up and down, and if I had to change for any reason and go in some other app, I could use all the buttons. I feel this is a really smart setup because this Bluetooth switch doesn't need any wiring, and this was one thing that I really didn't want. I didn't want wires all over the place, also because I was so short in time to be able to build the bike that I didn't have time to wire everything. So I only wired the power of the charging bracket and the power of the GFX. This I can remove at night, and every night I would remove it. It has a USB-C here input, and I would charge it at night and it would last all day. I needed some more room in this section of the handlebar, and the other thing I changed is the light switch. I went for this Trail Tech switch that has 3 positions. Here is to turn off the engine, but since I have the turn off the engine here, I use this for the horn, so I could horn at my friends. One of the biggest upgrades to this Ténéré 700 has been the suspension compartment. I went for the Rally Raid products internal cartridge kit, and for the full rear shock. I'll make a dedicated video on the suspensions because I feel there is a lot to say. I believe this is a necessary upgrade you want to do if you want to ride this bike primarily off-road and take part in rally events or races. But without spoiling the suspension video where I'll explain everything in more details, I want to quickly show you that here I have this O-ring on the fork, and even though, as you've seen me jump with this bike, I never bottomed out the fork nor the rear shock. I think this is amazing if we compare the OEM suspension, which are very good setup for an OEM bike, but if you want to race it and do jumps, it's a bit too soft. Here, probably I could have gone even with softer springs. I chose the stiffer ones available from Rally Raid. Combined with the suspensions, we also installed the triple clamp steering damper kit. This is a plug and play kit that lets you install a Scott steering damper. This setup made a huge difference because it made the bike very stable in the rocks. It took me a while at the start of the rally to find the average adjustment, so where it wouldn't be too stiff that it wouldn't turn but be stable, and be enough loose to be able to turn but then not stable. When I found the perfect setting, it was incredible. I would go downhill and see my friends with 450 bikes in the end of the downhill in the middle of rocks, and I could open completely the throttle and the bike would go straight and would never kick me anywhere or never understeer. Because one thing of adventure bikes, since they are very heavy, when you're off-road they tend to understeer. Instead, with the suspension kit and the steering damper kit, I completely solved this issue. Like many of you commented on one of my posts some time ago and said I needed a bash plate. It was in development at the time, and we went for a full carbon bash plate that resembles a real factory rally look, like the factory Dakar bikes. It protects completely all the front and lower section of the bike. Here it goes all the way up. One thing I didn't have time to do is to add a grill here, but here it wasn't needed because I knew I wouldn't come in mud. But for muddy situations, I would add here a grill, and I'll do it in the next weeks. But this bash plate, I was very pleased because here in Sardinia, you know, it's pretty technical. It's like doing enduro, and we went on enduro trails with this bike and on special stages that used to be of the World Rallies Championship, and the bash plate performed perfectly. I had no issue even if it touched underneath, because the bike clearance is not like an enduro bike. It just went perfect, and I think it adds a very sexy look. In fact, everyone that came here to the rally that wasn't a Ténéré, but even those that were on 450, were absolutely turned on by this bash plate. This bash plate is in the last steps of development and will be soon available on the Rebel Exports website and through official Rebel Exports distributors. This is made in collaboration with Carbon Fox, a Polish-based company that produces all the carbon parts of the factory mini car team at Dakar. These foot pegs you've already seen in a video. We kept them here, the Rally foot pegs by Rebel. Also, Alessandro Buturi rode with them, and we were both very happy and feel this is a necessary upgrade for the Ténéré in order to have a better footprint and be more comfortable and be more safe when riding off-road, being able to apply more pressure on your foot pegs. We are almost at the end. We changed the full exhaust. We put the full Akrapovic exhaust with no dB killer. The sound is amazing. Everyone loved hearing me behind them because this exhaust makes a beautiful sound. It's music for your ears. The full exhaust obviously gives a power upgrade to the bike, and this was important for me in order to have the bike very responsive when I open the throttle. With the exhaust, I also changed the rear sprocket. I put a bigger sprocket. In this way, the gearing ratio would be tighter, meaning that the bike wouldn't reach the top speed it would reach with a smaller sprocket, but I was not interested in top speed, but in responsiveness of the engine. This setup made the engine very smooth, and I could always use the second and third gear even in very tight sections, and it would be like a tractor and just pull me up any hill with ever losing traction. One small thing I also forgot to tell you is I changed the rear brake pads, and looking at the state they are in now, they lasted the whole rally, because on this bike I didn't change anything. We've been riding 3 days, over 200 kilometers per day. The only servicing I did was to clean the air filter, the twin air filter that goes on top of the paper filter, and that was it. Checked my bolts and bike was ready to roll. The seat is the rally seat by Yamaha, but we put on the Rebel Exports Selle dalla Valle rally seat cover. This made riding a lot more comfortable, especially on the liaison. So when we were on sections where we could just relax on the bike, it made everything softer for my ass, but also gives a very factory look to the bike. And speaking about looks, I personally designed with the SKDA, an Australian-based company, this full matte finish sticker kit, which, if you're interested, will be available on the Rebel Exports website. Like most of the products that you see on this bike, you can order through them. I'll leave the link in the description. This matte finish is the first time I apply it on a bike, and I think it gives a very different look to what we are used to, and it makes it perfect for photos and videos because there is no reflection of light. So it made Giacomo's work a bit easier, and it gives the bike a whole different look, in my opinion. It almost looks like a Dakar race bike. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel because also the Sardinia Legend Rally video is coming. I'll make a dedicated video for that, showing you some amazing footage of this rally. If you have any question or are curious about anything, leave a comment here down in the description. I'm very satisfied on this bike build because I feel I didn't put any useless accessory on it. I put all the things I needed to improve the rideability of the bike. This bike, you have to ride it standing up a lot, because what I noticed in this rally is that the more you stand on this bike, the better stability and the easier it is to turn the bike. Well, let me know now if you want to see more Ténéré dedicated videos on other builds, because I have other builds in my mind. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!